I'm just setting up. I should have one more angle and then audio test, and then we're good. But we're rolling now. So.
What up?
Yeah, we'll just silence. But yeah, dude, you should go to Tulum and you should stay at it's called The Beach.
The Beach?
It's a hotel. It's obviously like a stupid name because it's at
like,
the beach.
Is it a beach or a hotel? Like, I don't know.
It's called The Beach Hotel, but it's the best one, private, right in the best area. I go there every time. And yeah, dude, when you fly, you should fly into Cancun.
Okay.
Tulum is technically closer, but it's not that closer. It's not that much closer. And Tulum is a government military airport, and Cancun is a commercial airport.
Yeah.
So everything just sucks at Tulum. Like
I
everyone gets their bags searched. Like I chew nicotine gum sometimes, and they like said nicotine gum was illegal and like threatened to arrest me.
What the fuck?
Because they want to sell you their nicotine and stuff.
Are you nomadic right now? Or are you still in downtown?
We have our apartment in a floor below where you're staying, I think.
You're on floor 50 at 6th
52.
So you're above us.
Yeah.
My buddy lives at 5105.
Yeah.
And anytime he's not in town, I literally like stay at his place because I'm like, why the fuck not?
Yeah.
But dude, it's crazy. So I made a post about 6G. It kind of took off. And then I got all these business owners hitting me up that live in the building. And this guy started like a $100 million business from his garage.
Yeah.
So we're going to be meeting up for dinner. And I'm going to make a content series out of it where I get those meta glasses. And I'm like meeting up with $100 million CEOs.
Yeah.
Because I had 2 posts kind of blow up last week as well. My pure focus this year is content distribution and organic.
Yeah.
But
we're good and we're rolling. So.
Alrighty.
Sweet. Game face on.
Yes, sir. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the High Ticket Podcast. Today on the show, we have Mr. Chris Walker. Chris, did you want to give yourself a quick introduction?
Sure. What do you want to know?
That's a good question. Where do we even start? Because there's so much wonderful things to even talk about. Well, let's first get started about your entrepreneurial journey, right? Have you always been a business owner? Have you always been an entrepreneur? Or like, did you start in corporate and then make your way into entrepreneurship? Or
yeah, happy to go into it. So the way that I view myself now is I'm an athlete. I push the boundaries. I'm a visionary. I see where the world is going and work backwards from that to what needs to be true for that to happen. I challenge a lot of the traditional thinking, which I'm sure we're going to get into now, and say, does this, I know that people agreed to this in 1990, but does it still make sense today? Like, what in the world has changed? So that single skill has led me to a lot of success in life and a lot of life satisfaction. When I grew up and I lived life by the script. I played sports. People told me that you couldn't make any money being creative, or even back then it was like, it wasn't cool to be an entrepreneur in the 90s and 2000s. It was like an entrepreneur meant that you were poor and lived in your mom's basement. You know what I mean?
Professionally unemployed.
And so it's like, do something smart, like go study something responsible, like be a pharmacist or a doctor or an engineer or something in STEM. So I studied biomedical engineering, which was actually fire, and now I'm starting to apply that a lot more. And then I worked in corporate for about 10 years, mostly in B2B medical device companies.
Okay.
So companies that made the most blood pressure devices for hospitals, breathing devices that saved premature babies in the neonatal ICU, sensors that measured whether the water was safe that comes out of your faucet. So a lot of things that were in that type of area.
Right.
And then in 2019, I was politely asked to resign from one of the startups that I worked at. And the CEO that worked there at the time looked at me and said, bro, you shouldn't get another job. Like, you're an entrepreneur. You should go and do that. And I was like, what? An entrepreneur, right? Like, I'm making $120K a year. Like, I need a salary. I have $3,000 in my bank account. Like, what do you mean an entrepreneur? And then that was in 2019, and that was the shift in my life when I actually went for it. And happy to go a little bit deeper as we get deeper into it. But that's I had side hustles, right?
Yeah.
So I did side hustles selling things on Amazon when I'm 23, building a Shopify business and Instagram when I'm 25, but they were all like the training ground for me, I guess. Like none of them were actually, they made 100K in profit a year. Like they made some extra money, but it was never something where I was like, okay, I'm going all in on this.
So that moment that you decided to go all in, like what were those external factors that played into you saying, hey, corporate isn't going to be for me. Let's just double down on this business and actually give it a shot. Because most people are stuck in identifying themselves as, I'm an employee, I could never do that, or that's too much risk, or
it's not safe.
It's not safe. Yeah, like I've never done that before, so I can't do that in the future. Like, how did you overcome those barriers from going from, you know, like a regular employee to an actual business owner?
So when I got asked to resign, the company gave me a $30,000 severance, so $10,000 a month for 3 months. At that point, I had a bunch of student loan debt and basically no money in my bank account. And so I was like, I moved into an apartment with a roommate and saved $800 a month. I sold my car, saved the money on insurance, took the subway, just basically like cut my expenses to everything that I could. I was 29 at that point. And I was like, I'm gonna give this a try. I can go for 4 months. Let's see what happens. And in 4 months, I was making like $50K a month.
Damn. Oh shit.
And then once you get to even for me, it was like once you get to 20, you're like, oh, like yeah, I can do this. Like I'm making twice as much as my job, working half the amount of time, and I'm just getting started.
Right.
And so then that was when the balls started rolling for me. And even just to get to that point, you have to think differently. Mm-hmm. You have to challenge, like, why do I go to a job? Why do people think that it's safe? Like at this point now, I would encourage people to think that actually working for a job is less safe than working for yourself.
Yeah.
And because they can lay you off, they can have a down year, they can say, put you on a performance improvement plan. Like actually you're at the mercy of them. And most of the time your upside is capped based on the corporate hierarchy that you work in. And maybe you'll get promoted and a 10% raise in 2 years. And just the corporate ladder made sense in the 1990s. I'm not sure it makes sense anymore.
No, totally agree with that. And you mentioned that you went from 0 to what, 50K a month in 4 months?
Yeah, we were doing. Yeah, I've hired my first employee around 40K a month, and I think that took about 4 months. Yeah.
So, what ended up causing that? So to give you guys a little bit of context, I think the average salary in the United States is about 50K a year, and when you go from making a 6-figure salary to doing half of that in a month, it requires quite a bit of drastic changes. So were there like a lot of external factors, or were you doing a lot of inner engineering work to allow yourself to feel comfortable and feel safe at those higher income levels? Because what I've seen in the past as well is entrepreneurs will reach a revenue level and either self-sabotage or say, I'm not, like, they just put themselves in the way of their own goals.
Yeah.
But I guess, did you run into any of those challenges back then? Or was it kind of just like, hey, I had to fucking make it work because I only had 30 grand and I'm living in a friend's apartment?
So I wouldn't say that I was doing inner development at that time. However, when I look back on it, things were naturally happening. The first step in the process is really to question all the rules, which we kind of talked about. Like, why is it this way? Why do people go out and get drunk on Friday and Saturday? Why do we sit at our desk at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday if there's nothing important to do, right?
Yeah.
So like, why are we not supposed to work on Saturday if we're passionate about something and want to grow, right? So all these rules, starting to question how they work. I had been doing that for a while, which that just gets you in the game. Exactly. You know what I mean?
Like that's the awareness.
That's how you get in the game. And then from there, I had worked in these companies for 10 years. And my ideas, my creativity, my vision had all been suppressed because I was like, a senior manager at this 400-person company that people don't listen to you. And I actually had this I think I had this wildly interesting new perspective about what was happening in the B2B marketing world. And so at the beginning, I was like, nobody cares what I have to say. You know what I mean? There's people that are way smarter, way more experienced. Like they know and I don't, right?
Right.
And then I went to a conference in Boston, a B2B marketing conference. And I sat, and I won't use the person's name, but if people know the space, they probably know. And I listened to the keynote speaker speak. And I was like, everything this guy's saying, I tried 4 years ago, and I know it doesn't work, and I know a better way to do it. And at that point, it clicked for me. It's like, no, these people don't know more than me. Like, and it started to bring the power back to me. Then I started sharing my ideas on LinkedIn. That brought in a bunch of business for my network. LinkedIn, I eventually accumulated hundreds of thousands of followers and a great podcast that I did that was the driver of our 8-figure business. So that was the beginning, just that recognition of like, oh, like I know a lot. I'm a lot more capable than I thought I was.
Do you feel like a lot of people need that environmental exposure in the beginning to give them that insight of like, oh shit, it's possible? Or what are the different ways to unlock that that next level for yourself?
So the way I got to where I am was like, and the way most people got to up to this point is like wandering out around in the woods hoping that you find something important.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, like personal growth feels like that for a lot of people. I'll go to this retreat over here. I'll start doing some cold plunging and see what happens. I'll get a Whoop and measure stuff. Oh, I'll try to sleep a little bit more. Let me get this productivity system. Oh, now I'll take this course on, download this PDF about AI. And it's all these random episodic things.
Yeah.
And so now with the hindsight of all the stuff that I went through, I've actually created a process that people can follow that ironically involves no conscious learning.
Really?
Yeah.
So walk us through, so to give the audience a little bit more context, you started your business, scaled it up to 50K a month, eventually to 8 figures, and I believe you exited last year, right?
Yeah, I sold in 2023. I appointed a CEO.
Okay.
So for the 2 years following that, I was the chairman. I was non-operational.
Yep.
I went to a board meeting and worked 3 hours a quarter, and collected a big distribution check from the profit of the company because I was the majority owner.
Yeah.
And so that was a great run. And then in 2025, what I realized is I'm just not that passionate about this anymore, and I'm ready. I'm ready for something that is more purposeful, more meaningful, has a bigger impact on the world than trying to make venture capitalists a little bit more rich.
Yeah.
And so I made the decision. I was flying to Australia to go to see my girlfriend. She was already out there. And on the plane, I was like, I had the intuition. It's like, it's time to sell the company. And when I landed, it's a 14-hour flight. I called my business partner and said, I'm selling the company.
Wow.
So I made the decision like almost like that, and I've really built the ability to think clearly, tune into my intuition, and make decisions quickly. Trust myself to make decisions and act on them. And then 4 months later, the business was sold. I'm an NDA, so I can't disclose how much it was for, but it was a really nice check and a really good deal structure. And ever since then, I've been just pouring my heart into this new venture, ENCODED, which I just think is my life's work, and I believe that it's the future. People think about human performance and potential typically in 2 areas, which are the body, which is I'm going to cold plunge, exercise, sleep, eat well, not smoke cigarettes, things like that, and the conscious mind. I'm going to learn, build skills, learn techniques to interact with people and appear to be confident or successful or things like that. And then the hopeful outcome is, I get rich and people think I'm impressive.
Yeah.
And there's a foundational layer in your body called the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind automatically drives the state of your nervous system. So your something happens, right? We're having this. Immediately, without you thinking in milliseconds, your mind filters that and decides what it means to you, and then tells your nervous system, how should I allocate all the resources in my body, right? Should I allocate them to slowing down my digestive system so that I don't die? Should I increase my heart rate and make sure that we sweat and make sure that we're prepared if we need to run away from something or be safe? And that doesn't feel like a panic attack. It almost feels like you have 100 extra apps running in the background of your phone, killing your battery. So you don't actually even notice that it's there. And when all those resources are going to those places, which is in the sympathetic nervous system automatically, they don't go to things like restoring your cardiovascular health, digesting properly, and most importantly, in the prefrontal cortex, where all the most powerful capabilities of a human live. How do we connect with other humans? How do we think with clarity? How do we trust ourselves? How do we act creative? How do we have vision? How do we access our intuition? All of those are determined in the prefrontal cortex that is driven through the nervous system. And then once the resources are allocated and your body's running, then you actually think. And so when we think about this, it's like the subconscious is like the foundation of the building. And as you keep putting floors on the building and the wind starts blowing, AKA you have more responsibilities, life gets hard, people start criticizing you, you have employees that aren't happy, whatever, a relationship isn't working out, all these challenges happen, that's the wind blowing, and then all of a sudden it risks knocking the building over because the foundation isn't strong. And so that was my experience, is that you can feel it, but you don't notice it when you're an employee, right? You can feel feeling anxious. You can feel being worried that your boss is going to fire you or that a relationship isn't going to work out. So the symptoms are there. But then when you start building your own building a business, having people that rely on you, having customers that need certain things, having to show up and make content and show up in a certain way, then that's when the building starts getting high and it's at risk of tipping over. And so just by that design, entrepreneurs sort of arrive here by necessity, many of them. However, everybody should be doing it. And so that's a little overview about the way that I'm thinking about potential and performance now.
Very interesting perspective. But you mentioned how the way that your subconscious mind is programmed right now, it's capable of handling a certain level and a certain amount of conditions. And as you elevate and rise, you start to see those, windy tides. How do you go about subconsciously reprogramming your mind to allow yourself to reach those new levels, or not only reach those new levels, but feel safe in staying at the next level? Yeah.
So in order to understand how to change them, it's good to understand how they got there. And so how do these automatic programs even are here? What happens is that as we live our life through repetition, it creates neural pathways where the electricity basically automatically moves that are the strongest, right? So for instance, throughout our life, maybe we get told that it's not safe to stand out. Nobody gives you that rule. It's almost subconsciously adopted, where you you might feel embarrassed in elementary school if you raise your hand and you ask a dumb question. That's teaching you subconsciously it's not safe to stand out. And then you go to say you're at an office environment and you're in a team meeting and you make a suggestion and people don't respond to it, or like the manager puts you down or says, hey, that's not important. And then that happens thousands of times in little different instances, and then you subconsciously adopt the belief it's not safe to stand out, right? And then when you're an entrepreneur and you're going to make a podcast, you're going to make content because you want to share your expertise, you can't even make the content, or you procrastinate, or you make the content and then you're afraid to post it. And so that is an example of what happens. So over time, as it happens more and more, the neural pathways get stronger and the electricity basically automatically routes there. Other things that they come from work, school, media, advertising, influencers, family, every different direction, in addition to our past experience. So that comes from all these places, and then our past experience confirms those things to us, and then those two things combined create the neural pathways. So that could be things like, I need to suffer to be successful, big one in entrepreneurship. If I'm not grinding, then I'm falling behind. I'm not doing enough. That'll make you feel guilty if you're on vacation, feel guilty on a Saturday if you want to relax with your partner, anything like that. And there are thousands of them across all areas of life, that how we relate to time, money, work, relationships, purpose, creativity, all that different stuff.
Quick point on that. Right as you mentioned that, a lot of people in the audience are probably now that they're aware of this, they're probably thinking that, wow, I might have all these limiting beliefs holding me back. Like, how should they approach overcoming these limiting beliefs? Because when there's so many, are you supposed to pick like the biggest one holding you back? And if so, how do you find the biggest one? Like, what is your process of finding what to work on and then reverse engineering that and clearing through those charges?
Yep. So first, let's go. We talked about how repetition creates the program, right? So then how do you change it? Is you change it in the same way that it was created, which is through ongoing repetition.
Okay.
Right? And so if you're able to identify, and we can talk about that next, that I have a program that says it's not safe to stand out, then to identify that and then to over time repeat something like I share my truth and expertise to empower others, right? Like something like that replaces it's not safe to stand out with I share truth and experience to inspire and empower others. And what we found is that the optimal process to do this, most people think, oh, well, I just have to show up on the podcast and I'll take action and willpower through it and that will be the way that it works. That's the common conventional wisdom. It works 9% of the time.
Wow.
is the statistic. So it's a very low leverage place and you can feel it in your body. It feels hard. You feel anxious. There's a reason for that. It's because what you're doing is conflicting with the programs, and that emotional response is what is generated from it. So instead, what we do is we work on updating the program first. Out of all the things, right, there's like stereotypical things, like I'm just going to say an affirmation in the mirror. I'll just like speak it into existence. Maybe I'll just meditate and visualize and then something will happen. Most of those are either have zero scientific evidence that they're effective or do not have a body of work that shows that. So the thing that has the most evidence right now is handwriting, which sounds simple, right? They're like, oh, I've journaled before. That hasn't done anything for me, but you haven't done it in this way, which is taking a targeted subconscious program and then replacing it with a different one. Now, when we handwrite, it's a very active process. We have to think about what we're writing. We have to move our hand in order to write it. We have to read what we're writing. So there's actually a lot of active process going into that. As we do that every day consistently, just like going to the gym, what happens is that the neural pathway gets stronger. We start to memorize over the next 10 or 14 days. Now we can say it immediately. We memorized it. Then what we notice is with that level of clarity, what happens is that our mind automatically filters our experience through that, and we start to show up differently. We have less friction when we're going to do the podcast. Then we actually do the podcast.
Yeah.
And when we do the podcast, that provides feedback to us of, oh, I do share my expertise to inspire others. It is safe to be, visible and things like that. And then through the belief action, it creates a reinforcement loop that the pathway gets stronger. And then over time, simply that pathway is stronger and the electricity simply automatically moves into that path instead of the other one. And so that's the process of how we do it. Now, when we think about what are the things that are holding me back, right? So,
or more specifically, when there's so many things holding you back, how do you pick what to work on? Because you can work on the limiting belief of I'm afraid of being seen, or no one can do it better. No one can do it better than me in the business, right? Stuff like that. But I guess how do you pick what to prioritize in terms of your self-development journey?
Yeah. So historically, it required a massive level of self-awareness and introspection to even be able to identify that I subconsciously believe it's not safe to be seen, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why for me and many others, it feels like walking around in the woods with no path, right? It's like, what am I actually doing here? Now, what we've done at ENCODED is we've built a process where what we do is we look at how do you feel about your current life right now on all these different dimensions: time, money, work, relationships, location, like all this different stuff. And where do you want your life to go, at least directionally, right? You don't have to have a perfect picture, but what direction do you want to be moving in? And then to map the gap. And through the mapping of the gap, you can say, okay, these are the biggest areas that are holding it. You can go and sort and prioritize it. And then this is the biggest area to focus. And then we create a top 5. Our AI system actually maps the main subconscious programs that are holding you back that, again, it would take years of introspection usually to find historically.
That makes a lot of sense. So to very simply, to put it in simple terms, you first have to identify what is holding you back. From there, you have to define the dream state of who do I intend on becoming, and what would the version of myself believe that, what would the version of myself who I want to be believe in order to make it true, and then basically reaffirm the affirmations through written script, and over time through actions, you get a confirmation that ends up changing the neural pathway. Am I understanding this right?
More or less, but in order to identify, you said number 1 is identify what's holding you back. In order to identify what's holding you back, you need to know where you want to go.
I see.
And so it's like understanding, having clarity on where do I want to go and where am I, which then allows you to identify what are the biggest things that are holding me back from where I want to go.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's who is the person? Who is that person? How do they view themselves? And what do they believe about the world that enables them to show up that way automatically, not through discipline or willpower or trying. It's just who they are, right? Like 5 years ago, I might have felt anxious coming to this podcast. I was trying to impress people. I thought I had to be perfect in my words, right?
Yeah.
At this point now, I don't need to try to do this, right? And it's not because I've practiced 700 times. It's actually because of how I view why I'm here and who I am that allows me to show up this way. I had done 500 podcasts and would still get anxious to do a speech.
Right.
And it's because I was trying to impress people and show them that I was successful instead of being here for a different reason and being clear on who I am and why I'm doing it.
Interesting. And just for the audience to understand, if you were to explain to a 3-year-old what the word identity even means, how would you simply explain to someone new? Because we're talking about very esoteric, high-level concepts here, but for the average business owner, think about it. They're stuck into the day-to-day. They're stuck with all these external problems. Oh, this employee is mad, or they're about to quit, or I can't make payroll, or whatever. But maybe it honestly could be coming down to how they show up as a leader or who they are. So if you were to sum it up, like, what is identity from a fundamental level? And we know the process of changing it now, but to simply explain to someone that wouldn't know this concept, how would you go about that?
Identity is having clarity and stability in who you are, what you do, why you do it, and that you can do it.
I see.
And it is not how, if you were at a cocktail party, how you would describe yourself to somebody else. It is the internal reference that your body uses to determine what is safe and what is risky, what opportunities are realistic for somebody that's like you, what behaviors are something that you do versus what you can't do, what things are in reach versus out of reach, what's scary versus what is not, automatically without even thinking about it.
And how do you know the issue that you're running into is an identity issue versus an external issue? Because a lot of people they run into a productive procrastination problem of like, I'm just going to do all this breath work, meditation, cold plunge, sauna, woo woo stuff. But then they're too far into this side of the spectrum where it's like all woo woo, and then they're like, oh, none of this is working. I'm just going to work hard and grind it out and go the Hormozy route. Like, how do you balance that dichotomy and know like when it's an internal issue versus an external issue?
Everything is an internal issue. And so people say this all the time, right? They're like, oh, this person is in a tough environment at work, right? And so that's why they feel stressed, right? However, if they had clarity and trust themselves, they would just leave. So it's like, why are they subjecting themselves to that environment? Probably because they don't think they can get a different job. They don't think that they can do it on their own. They're scared, right? And it's the most empowering realization ever as a human to realize that nothing is an external problem.
That's a mic drop right there.
It's how you relate to the things, right? Like, our software development is a month behind, right? I'm just giving a couple of examples, right? 5 years ago, I'd be like, team, everything's falling behind. The competitors are going to catch up to us. What the fuck? Like, we need to fire someone. Let's hire somebody else. We need a consultant.
Yeah.
And it's like,
we need a consultant.
and it's like, now I'm like, okay, guys, like, this is showing us that we have some holes in our process over here. This is a good thing, right? We have more time to figure this out as we scale, right? And it's the challenge is the same. How I relate to the challenge based on my own internal foundation is totally different, right? Somebody criticizes me on LinkedIn. 4 year ago, I tried to prove to them that I was smart and that I'm a good person, right? Now I just ignore it and move on with my day, right? It's like, this person doesn't know me. That what they're saying is a reflection of them, not me. So I can just ignore it and move on. I have maybe a friendship, right? A friendship, someone I've been friends with for 5 years, right? And we're starting to go in different directions. 5 years ago, I would feel obligated to keep hanging out with them every once in a while and keep in touch with them. Now I'm like, we're going in different directions and this doesn't match the life that I'm going on, and I'm happy to let this relationship fade away for right now. And if we start to come back together later, amazing, right? I don't not like the person. It just doesn't match the life I want to live right now. And so those are examples, but they all root in your own internal foundation. And so when you take that level of ownership, then it's like everything is an internal.
Yeah, everything is an internal problem, which, the external problems technically can be solved internally.
They get solved first internally.
Internally, yeah.
Yes.
Wow, that's a powerful way to think about it. What would you say to the people that are doing the inner work but are frustrated by the time delay in which it takes to see your external fruits come into fruition?
You're probably not following the right process.
Would you say it takes time to rewire and change your identity, or is it more of a instantaneous process or whatever?
When you follow an effective process, which many of them are not, when you follow an effective process, you feel the difference in 7 to 14 days. It's not that you immediately become a millionaire if you're poor.
Yeah.
It's not like you're immediately in top 1% shape if you've never worked out before, but you feel the direction that you're going in, right? So when we think about how a change actually happens, step one is we need to be aware of what's getting in our way. We talked about that. Step two is we need to believe different things about ourselves in the world. That when we believe different things about ourselves in the world, the internal friction goes down or goes away. When the internal friction goes down, the actions that that person would take become way easier and smooth. The belief action reinforcement loop spins. Over time, we try, and then we fall off for a little bit, or we hit some unexpected challenge, and it pushes us back into whatever pattern we used to go into. But over time, it just becomes ingrained as this is who we are now. And then once it becomes this is who we are, we don't need to try, we don't need to show up. It just happens automatically.
How do you avoid the trap of stopping the inner work when you're going through a downturn and you're like, fuck, this isn't working. Like, I'm not meant to do this. Like,
by shifting your perspective on what it is. So most people believe that if something feels like hard, or that I'm plateauing, or that I'm perceived to be going backwards or slowing down, or I face a challenge, that's a bad thing. But what if we reframe, and this is not like some positive thinking thing, this is actually what happens. What if this is the opportunity to see who we really are? We do not see who we are when everything's going good, when the money's flowing, when the people are happy, when the economy's great. We find out who we really are when challenges happen. So it's like, that's what happens. When the pressure comes on, your brain moves to the most familiar neural pathways, and you break down in challenges and stress, and you fall back to the actual you. And so when we face a challenge, this is like, oh, this is my opportunity to see who I really am. This is my opportunity to hold this elevated version of myself even when things aren't going right. And when I can hold this elevated version of myself through that, that means that I've got to the next level. And that mindset switch within that part of the process, most people fall off at that part of the process, right? Things get hard. Oh, I went to the gym for 5 days, but then I stopped going for 3, so I guess this isn't going to work for me, so I'm just not going to go. rather than seeing that as the opportunity of ingraining it into yourself about who you are, and not in a willpower discipline type of way. So I think that reframe has been, I only started adopting that like a year ago, and it's been life-changing for me because challenges do not go away.
Oh yeah.
Like, they don't go away. The only thing that changes is how you show up to them, right? 5 years ago, it would be hard if I needed to like have a difficult conversation, right, subjective, a direct conversation with someone and tell them that they're not a good fit for our company anymore. And I'd be anxious or afraid that they might get mad or I won't say the right thing, and I'd put it off for 3 months and let this person that doesn't fit in our company keep working in our company until it's so obvious they don't belong or hope that they quit. And now it's like, this conversation isn't difficult. Like, this person isn't working out. I'm not hurting their feelings. Like, they probably have somewhere else that they would be a better fit for too. If it's not working for us, it's probably not working for them either. This is good for both of us.
Right.
And so there's that switch in how we look at everything really matters.
Now, let's just say you're in that valley of despair. You're in that tough situation. What are some practical, what is it that you should do? Is it just like a perspective reframe that you should remind yourself of when you're in those tough times, to allow yourself to show yourself who you are and prove to yourself like, oh shit, I can actually handle this next level? Because think about it, when you're in that when you're in a tough situation, what are you clouded by? Emotions, like the fear, anxiety, and all
Indeed,
this.
that's the friction. And
at least from what I've observed, when those emotions just cloud your brain, in my perspective, which also could be a limiting belief, it inhibits your ability to think clearly. Because when your nervous system is fully regulated, you're not clouded by emotions or all this bullshit. You can actually make clear decisions. But when you're in a situation like that, you're not really able to, or it's harder to make a clearer decision, right? So, what should someone do when they hit that like rough patch?
Yeah. So one, that's what we talked about up front. It's scientifically proven when you're at that level, resources get diverted away from the prefrontal cortex, which drives clarity. So that's all demonstrated. Yes, and it doesn't need to be that you're in a state of total dysregulation or stress. It can show up as inconsistency. Like I thought clearly, I was super creative that day, but then I go through a creative dry spell. I guess I'm just not that creative, right? It's actually not. It's how the resources are being allocated. And so where are we going with that?
Yeah, like when you're in that like rough,
Yeah.
So when you're usually when you start something or start a new project or start a new level of inner work, you either see some quick wins and you see some quick results, and then eventually you hit a rough patch that really like kind of tests you and shows you, oh, are you really meant to do this? In that moment, is it just a mental reframe, reminding yourself that, oh, this, I mean, this is your opportunity to show up, or are there other tangible, practical exercises or things that you can do during those tough times to allow you to push through to the other side?
So there's two major things. The first one is that looking at why do we even think that if we hit this point that it's a bad thing, right? Just like we challenge, why do I go to an office 9 to 5, or why is it safe to work for a company? It's the same program.
Yeah.
The same program that says if I'm not going up and to the right on whatever metric I decided, then I'm falling behind, not good enough, and should quit. And that is a subconscious program on its own.
Right.
And in reality, what I've found, and I think what many people, if they looked clearly at their life, is that it doesn't go up and to the right. That there are dips and troughs and things like that. And to consider the possibility that the dips actually prepare you to the next level. That dip is actually a test, because imagine that you play in Little League, right? And then all of a sudden you get moved up to the pros. What's going to happen? You're going to fold like a cheap chair. And so we actually need to get to that level, move up to, T-ball, move up to high school baseball, to college, to the minor leagues, to AA, to single A, wherever we're going. And at each of those, we are building the capacity to be at that level permanently. And so when we look at these troughs, I don't even really view it that way, but I call it stabilization. We're stabilizing who we are and what we believe. That when you reframe it to stabilization, it's like, I need this to get to the next level. This is part of the process. So that is, it's not positive thinking, right?
Yeah.
I think positive thinking is pretending to look at something positively, even though you don't like it that way, right? This isn't positive thinking. That's a rational explanation as to what's happening that'll be more empowering for you. And then the second thing, which is massively underappreciated, is your intentions. And most people think intentions are like their goals, right? Like, how much revenue do I do? Or how they would rationally explain why they're doing something. And intentions are subconscious and sit really deep underneath and usually do not match the rational explanation that someone would have for why they're doing what they're doing. So many people, the underlying driver of their behavior is to avoid punishment, impress people, prove something, collect resources or accumulate things in order to impress people or feel better about themselves. I'm not talking down to anyone. I've done the exact same shit.
Right.
And it took a lot of development for me to see that in myself. And when those are our drivers, they're called hedonic drivers, it's proven that we have less life satisfaction, we make worse decisions, and things like that, and that it burns our energy instead of giving us energy. And so when we're in situations where if our only driver is to impress people and make money, and something gets hard, then it's hard to sustain the momentum because you don't really have a real powerful driver inside of you. So through frequency training and subconscious mind training, what we do is we intentionally shift our intentions to things that are called eudaimonic. And eudaimonic intentions are that we derive success and life satisfaction through our own capacity. That as we develop this capacity and express more of the power within ourselves, that is the true driver of success. Being more creative, being more visionary, showing up better in our relationships, being a better father or parent, giving back to communities. You can do all of those things and make money. Those things are actually far more impressive than having a Ferrari.
Money, yeah.
And so it's not like saying, oh, we're just going to do all this stuff and not be successful. It's the underlying driver of our ambition. And so when we shift our ambition into that direction, that actually generates energy rather than consuming it. When we are focused on our vision, our values, our own capacity and development, that it becomes energizing so that when something, a setback happens, it actually doesn't, we're not fazed by it. It doesn't slow us down. It's just part of us moving to our own capacity and vision. And again, that is a subconscious technique that requires repetition because almost all of us have been conditioned into hedonic intentions.
Right.
So those two shifts on questioning the up and to the right progress and then reframing the why underneath what we're doing, those two things are how a setback doesn't faze you.
That's very powerful, dude. Because a lot of people are just motivated by the money, the fame, whatever. It's like very external things, but if there's a deeper why behind what you're doing, it, as you mentioned, it even during those tough times, it shows you a different perspective of like why you should keep pushing through and see the other side.
And in addition, people that have hedonic intentions, which is a majority of the population because of the conditioning, a couple of things happen. Many people that are hyper successful are the least satisfied with their life. that you can already see. I noticed that in myself when I looked at who I was looking up to 5 years ago, and I looked and I said, these people are divorced, they're out of shape, they're traveling and working for business, not on their own time.
Yeah.
They're flying around doing a speech everywhere around the country. They're on someone else's own time. Sure, they have $10 million and they have a million followers, but I don't want their life.
Yeah.
And so that was, they're divorced. They see their kids once every couple of weeks. Like there was just, when I started to look deeper, I was like, a lot of people that are successful by traditional standards no longer meet my definition
of success. Yeah.
So that was a big one. And a proven effect related to hedonic intentions is that when you achieve the thing, it feels good for a little while. When you buy the Ferrari, when you hit 10 million in revenue, when you hit 50K in revenue, the number doesn't matter. What happens is that within 2 to 3 weeks, it becomes your baseline and the bar moves up. And so what happens is that you are on a never-ending hamster wheel of not being enough because the things out there are not the things that make you feel successful and enough. It's actually the things that are in here. And when you have the things in here set up, it actually powers you to drive to the things outside of you just from a whole different level of ambition.
For the person that's stuck, for the person that's stuck in the never enough loop, how would you go about finding what your true drivers are? Because you can always you can scroll on social media, and be like, oh, hey, nice car, I want that. Oh, she's hot. I want a hot girl, whatever. But how do you go from external desires to finding out what you truly want? Because when you're clouded by so many perceptions and influences, especially for even for the younger crowd, there's so many young entrepreneurs too that are trying to figure out what their true intention and true desire in life is.
I mean, I've been on the hamster wheel, right? And I was one of the fastest runners on the hamster wheel, 8-figure business, hundreds of thousands of followers, top 1% podcast in the world, international speaking, hundreds of people working at my company, thousands of people telling me that I changed their life, dating pretty girls, going out to nice restaurants, going to fancy vacations, driving a real $200,000 car, the things, right? And I was the most miserable at that. I was more miserable at that point than I was making $20K a month in my living room without a car.
Wow.
And it was because once you get there, you realize that it was a lie. That it doesn't actually improve how you feel. And so the process that people can take, which doesn't need to be like mine, right?
Yeah.
It would have been just much better in all areas of my life had I figured this out before I started my company instead of when it was doing 20 million in revenue. So the first step is to realize that everything that you think about how the world works is an opinion. It is not a fact. It is not a fact that having a Ferrari makes you impressive. It is not a fact that dating a pretty girl is the thing that you should do. What if she's a witch?
Yeah.
What if she ruins your life? There are many pretty girls that are like that.
Yeah.
So it's not that is the thing that signals value as for a woman. That's an opinion. It's not a fact. That having more people work at your company means that you're more powerful, right? Whatever they are. So to look at those and to first realize that it's not a fact, right? So that's step one.
Yeah.
Step two is going through the process of deciding for yourself. Deciding for yourself, what does success look like to me? What does productivity mean to me? What does a incredible once in a lifetime relationship mean to me? What does friendship mean to me? Right? All these different things. When you decide it for yourself, then when the content shows up, you're like, this doesn't match what I believe, right? I don't believe what Alex Hormozi says. I don't listen to him. I used to listen to Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't listen to Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't listen to Grant Cardone. I don't listen to Cody Sanchez. None of them match my belief system. And so what happens is that you just stop looking for answers from other people, and you start deciding for yourself. It's like those people, they made money, they have an audience, but they don't know what's right for me. Only I know what's right for me. And so that is the foundation. And in order to have that foundation of self-trust, you need to be clear on who you are and where you're going. And we get back to identity, beliefs, and intentions. And with that clarity of where you want to go and what a good life looks like, then you can easily filter. That doesn't match what I want. That person doesn't match what I want. Like, okay, actually, wait. It's only it's only me that I know what I want. When I need to make a decision, I don't need to look at a PDF to know that. I don't need to call my coach. I know what's right for me. And that creates the foundation for autonomy, which is one of the most powerful things in a world where basically everyone has been conditioned that there's somebody else out there that knows better than them. And it's totally not true. The only person that knows what's right for you is you, as long as you can see clearly and trust yourself.
For a lot of people, I feel like their internal trust has been broken by themselves. Because what's the term? The do-say mentality. When you promise yourself something, I'm gonna go do this, and then something in the world happens, and you don't end up doing it. When you make a promise to yourself and keep breaking it, over time you start to break trust with yourself. How do you build back that trust in order to show yourself, oh hey, like I am capable of making these decisions. I don't need to outsource my decision making to a fucking coach, or I don't need to like look externally, right?
So this is why willpower, discipline, accountability systems, consuming books and content and things like that actually backfire. They backfire because when you go and do something and then you don't succeed, which is the 9% success rate of using willpower, so 91% of the time people don't succeed, that it backfires because it actually lowers your self-efficacy. So self-efficacy is I can trust myself to do what I say I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And so it lowers your self-efficacy, and a byproduct is lower self-trust.
Yep.
Self-efficacy is a component of self-trust. And so the way that you build it back up is you start at the foundation of self-trust, which is not self-efficacy. The foundation of self-trust is who am I? What do I do? Why do I do it? And then you demonstrate to yourself that you can do it, right?
See.
And so, the way that someone can figure this out really clearly of, do I have this stable foundation as a prerequisite to self-trust? Because self-trust is misunderstood.
Yep.
It's not confidence. It's not competence. Self-trust is a separate whole thing. Now, the foundation is, if I asked you right now, who are you? How long would it take you to figure it out? How intentional would you be with the words? And is this exactly who you want to be, right? And so what I found is that most people are like, oh, well, like I'm a dad, I'm an engineer, like I have this company I'm trying to do, right? It's not intentional. It takes them a long time to figure it out. And what that demonstrates is that you do not have clarity and stability in who you are and intentionality. And so if somebody asked me, I could rattle off the top 10 things about who I am straight away. The words are carefully chosen. I know exactly what they are. And with that, then your mind automatically filters every situation through it, which says, so I see that piece of content, that's not me, right? It's almost like you don't even see it. It gets ignored. A key decision happens, filters through. Oh, yeah, I'm going to, like someone says, do you want to go to the bar or are you going to go to the gym the next day? Oh, I'm a top 1% athlete. No bar. I'm going to the gym the next day. See you later, right? And so when we don't have that level of clarity and stability, then we second guess ourselves. Then we're not sure. Then we start asking other people what we should do. Then we try to do stuff and it doesn't work. And then we think that, oh, I guess I'm not creative. I guess I'll just never get in shape. I guess I just can't build my business that good. I guess I just can't be, I guess I just always will be trapped in my business, right? And those are not reflective of who you are. They're reflective of how you currently view yourself and how you're showing up right now.
Very interesting. This is a very eye-opening conversation because it's a different way to think compared to traditional like perspectives.
So different.
Yeah, and most people are trying to will their way to success, like with the 9% that you mentioned.
So here's the interesting thing, is that in 1990, it was a reliable approach. That there was barely an internet, right? And there was no AI, right? There was no social media. And so if you worked 60 hours a week and you tried harder, you would have an advantage over somebody that only worked 20 hours a week. You'd get more relationships, more connections, you'd collect more information, more experience. You would have a tangible advantage over somebody else, right? So now the people that were successful 1990 and prior, the Mark Cubans, a lot of those types of people, pass off the advice that made them successful to people in a world that doesn't match the way that they were in the conditions that they were successful in. And so in this current world with AI, the internet, social media, all those different things, it is way less about forcing your way through stuff. You have so many other options and what is actually valuable and important that is outside. Work ethic matters, right? What matters more is the direction that the work ethic is pointed in. Yeah.
Because most people just do blatant work just for the sake of work with no intentionality. But it comes back down to who are you becoming? What is the direction that you're going, and how do you associate yourself to the direction that you're going? Real quick, Zach. Can you?
Yep. Fell asleep. Boom, boom, boom. All right.
Cool. Now, with ENCODED, it seems like it's a very powerful tool to even avoid confirmation bias, because when you, for example, from my current perspective, it seems like there's two directions that you can go down. It's either a positive reinforcement loop to get you to your goal, or if you're not using a systematic process to rewire your identity, you can even fall into a self-deprecation loop of reaffirming that I'm not good enough. I'm not and I'm this bad thing. I'm this bad thing. And 90% of entrepreneurs out there are probably going into a self-deprecation loop, and they don't have a systematic process. So, first of all, how did you even get the idea for ENCODED? And let's start there.
So the way that I have been looking at this is the distinction of it is actually a little bit different, and the distinction is my objective to collect more information, more skills, more frameworks, more coaches, more content, loading more programs into my more information into my conscious mind, or am I going to build at the subconscious level that allows me to use all of the stuff that I already have way more effectively? So the difference is imagine trying to have all the apps on your iPhone run on Windows 95.
It's not gonna work.
So most people, a lot of people, let's just be accurate, a lot of people are running Windows 95 and then trying to throw the Uber app and, Uber Eats and that type of stuff into run on that operating system. It's not going to work. And so it's to have the recognition that more information, more skills are not actually what's holding you back anymore. That's actually what it is. It's your cognitive emotional state, which is driven by your subconscious beliefs. Your emotions are getting in the way. Your automatic decisions and biases are getting in the way of your leadership, of your growth, of your finances, not whether someone tells you to invest in the S&P versus this other thing, right? So that's the big switch, and the driver of it is AI. And so what has happened is that for the past 50 years, information has been the scarce premium resource. If you had more information, then you were more valuable. Imagine the doctor in the 1950s, right? They had information. There was no Wikipedia, a library, an encyclopedia. No one could look up their symptoms. No one could ask ChatGPT or Claude what was going on, right? So the doctor was so valuable because they had information that nobody else had, right? And the rules of the world were built around that. The school system was built around giving you information and helping you process it. the credentialing system of having a resume that says what title and experience and things like that were built on verifying that you had the information and the competencies.
Right.
The personal and professional development industry are built on the idea that everyone just needs more information, and the next insight is going to be what unlocks it for them, which was relevant and real 20 or 30 years ago and back to the 1950s. Now, over the past 20 years, we've noticed these shifts happening. First the internet, then social media, and now AI. And once AI happened, it became totally undeniable that information is no longer scarce and the premium of information is going down. It's not that what you know isn't valuable, it's that everybody else also can figure it out too, and it's no longer that scarce. So the premium is coming down on it. And when these types of technological shifts happen, it is an invitation for humans to elevate to their next level of capacity, is the way that I look at it. So if you think about in 1970, a factory or 1960, a factory worker, right? First off, the factory worker, they never measured the IQ of the factory worker. It wasn't economically relevant, right? The factory worker had an IQ. They were capable of doing knowledge work. They had the capacity to do it. The economy just didn't need it yet.
Right.
And then the factory started implementing automation, robots and things like that to do the factory worker's job for them. And the factory worker stopped making their money through skilled labor using their muscles, and they started making money using their conscious brain.
Yeah.
This transition from a skilled labor worker to a knowledge worker. Now, what's happening with AI is the knowledge worker today is the factory worker of 1970, right? You've built your entire career on information processing and knowledge accumulation, and now automation is doing all of that for you better, faster, and cheaper, just like the robots did to the factory worker. And that provides an invitation of, okay, so where do I go next that's not going to be automated? And it's not learning more information about AI, right? That would be equivalent to the factory worker being the best one using the robot that eventually is going to get taken away anyway, right? Yeah. So there will be people that make money implementing AI and managing AI agents. What I'm saying is that it's not going to be the most premium, scarce resource. And the premium, scarce resource is going to be your frequency. And what that is how you connect with humans, how clear you think, how much you trust yourself, how creative you are, how much vision you have, how autonomous you are, how intentional you are. These skills now become the premium resource when information is abundant. So if you look at the 1,000-person company right now, they have all the AI, all the automation, all the stuff, all the resources, and literally nobody in the company knows what's important. They have infinite amount of information, infinite amount of possible decisions, and nobody has clarity. And a lot of people don't have self-trust either. They're asking the consultant, they're asking McKinsey what they should do, right? They're looking at the best practices, what Gartner said. And so you can already see what's forming right now is when information is abundant, it's not about finding the next piece of information. It's actually the likelihood that the next piece of information you see on social media is what is right for you is now almost negligible. It's impossible. Because how much content there is, how is the next piece of content when there's millions of pieces a day going to be the one that you need?
Yeah.
The odds are like winning the lottery, right? So it's like very, very low. And so it's not about finding the next piece of information now. It's about knowing what matters. It's actually about being able to filter all the information to say, those million things don't matter. These are the things that do. Then to have the discernment to say, but these situations were different. So now in my situation with my values and my business and my life, those things don't matter. This part of it does. Let me apply it to this. Let me make my own decision. And so the premium skills are shifting. And those skills, just like the factory worker that made money with their muscles, then went to using their brain, the skills of the next era are not in your conscious mind. They're built in your subconscious mind that happen automatically, move to your nervous system, and then after that you can do everything on top of it. But listening to a podcast about clarity does not allow you to operate with clarity. Right? Yeah. Learning a podcast, reading about autonomy, knowing what it means does not make you an autonomous human. Listening to Tony Robbins tell you about self-trust does not allow you to trust yourself. Hiring a coach to tell you how to trust yourself doesn't make you trust yourself. That it's the equivalent to reading a book about physical fitness and actually being in top 1% shape. That the way that you build these skills is through training, not learning. And so that's the way that I look at the macroeconomic shift. People are feeling it. What people feel, just like the factory worker in 1970, is that the returns on their effort and their current strategy are working less than they were before. So they work harder, they optimize harder, they try more, they learn more, they use AI, things like that. But you can see it in the burnout and stress statistics and the mental health stuff going on. And people think that that gets solved with the 4-day work week or a meditation retreat or a vacation or even, meditating 10 minutes a day. It's a structural problem. And the structural problem is that a majority of people are playing a game that is no longer working in the current world. And that's what's causing the burnout and mental health issues. And so this is an invitation. It's an invitation to change, to elevate to the next level of human capacity that becomes the scarce and premium resource. And the most amazing thing is that it's almost basically a level playing field for everyone. That somebody that was disadvantaged in the information era because they couldn't get into Harvard because their parents weren't rich, or they couldn't work at this company because they didn't have a good enough resume, but they built resilience in their real life, right? They learned to trust themselves through their experience. That person is actually ahead of the person that went to Harvard and worked at Meta for 7 years and has a good resume. So the playing field has totally shifted on who has the advantage, and nobody can do it for you. You can't do it yourself. Your parents can't buy you self-trust. Harvard can't tell you, build the capacity to make decisions for yourself. No one can teach you how to create the internal state to be creative all the time. That you need to do it, just like nobody can get fit for you. And I think that that is such an amazing thing going on, because in past eras, if you had land in the 1890s, you were guaranteed to be one of the most powerful people out there, right? If you had capital in the 1920s, you could build the railroads, the factories, all that different stuff, and that produced more money. And the people that didn't have the money almost didn't have a chance. In the knowledge era, people had more opportunity. They could come up from a tough upbringing and go to college and make a life for themselves. But still, a lot of people were disadvantaged, and there was a lot of inequity around a lot of things. And it's not going to be perfectly equal and perfectly just, but it is going to be the most level playing field that's ever existed in the world. And I think that's amazing for humanity.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And I know outside of the podcast, we were talking about something special you got coming up. I think you're working on a secret project, VT. Behind the scenes,
I mean,
right?
Yeah, dude. I just laid out to you like chapter 4 or something.
Chapter 4? You know the exact chapter too. Okay. You want to tell the audience a little bit more about what you're cooking up in the background?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of what we just talked about. I for like 6 years, people have been like, dude, you should write a book. Yeah. And I was like, I really don't want to write a book about B2B marketing. Like, I just don't. And then it just hit me last year. And it was an intuition, right? I built the nervous system capacity that allocates the resources in the right way, that I can access intuition more reliably and trust myself when I access it. So the intuition was like, it's not that AI is going to put everyone out of a job and the robots are going to kill us. It's that it's an invitation for humans to get to the next level. And that fundamental shift is part of the thesis of the book, right? Like if I asked that to AI would have never told me that answer. It can only look at past patterns of what other people have said. So to come up with new ideas that have never happened before, actually by definition and design, you can't do it with AI. You have to come up with the new idea. You have to see the world differently. And so the thesis of the book is sort of what we just explained, is that there's an economic transition that's happening in where is the scarce premium resource that humans have that drives the economic structure around it that will be built. So most people are viewing it as a technology shift, but what's happening is that the technology is driving an economic shift, which only happens, it's happened 3 times in modern history. When all the mechanisms, people used to work in 1890, 90% of the humans that participated in the economy worked on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
And then they developed the mechanical reaper, the tractor, all these different things over the next 100 years. And within 100 years, the production was up so much, and only 4% of the workforce worked on a farm, from 90% to 4% through automation, right? Then in 1940, 50% or more of the workforce worked in a factory. They were a skilled laborer. Today, only 7 or 8% of people work in a factory. The rest of the jobs have been automated, and people started, knowledge work became the main thing. And the thesis is that knowledge work is, a majority of knowledge work is being automated, things that you can do in your conscious mind, not everything, but a lot of it is. So a lot of people that derived human value and built their career on learning more and things like that, it's not that the skills don't matter, it's that they're just not scarce anymore, and therefore do not, like the supply and demand equation has shifted, and when there's more demand and supply isn't or when there's more supply and demand is going down or staying stable, the cost of it goes down, which means we have less people in the economy doing that job, and the people that are doing that job are getting paid less. And then it's like, okay, so what can't AI automate? AI can't automate what's inside me. It can't automate my creativity, self-trust, all of these, my clarity. To know, you can ask AI, what should I do, right? And it'll scan through all the stuff and give you the best prediction it can based on everybody else's information, but it can't know what's right for you at that right time with your whole life in that exact situation. So it starts to move, and what I view it as is now we have this amazing paradigm, which is that we have artificial intelligence, which is exactly what it is: artificial, predicted, processed, and that a majority of what humans had previously done was artificial or just not that valuable.
Yeah.
And then we have the rise of human intelligence. All the things, all the amazing, powerful capabilities that only a human can do, and that have not been valued by the economy previously, but we all have the capacity. And the amazing thing is that we all have it. Just like every factory worker could have used a computer and used their brain and built that capacity, we all can do these things too. It's not like, the way I like to say it is that being a visionary is not a personality trait. It's a capacity. It's like the size of your bicep, right? Anyone that wants to work out can get stronger with the right plan.
Yeah.
The same thing goes for vision. The same thing goes for creativity.
To have like, you can create your capacity to build your vision and grow your vision. Is that what you're meaning?
You can create the capacity to have visions of where the world is going that doesn't exist right now.
I see.
And that vision is a high-level capacity that is built on the foundation of clarity, emotional sovereignty, equanimity, self-trust, discernment, creativity, deep human connection. Then you get to vision.
I see.
And that you build, it's like you're building this, like, it's, sure, I had visions in 2021 once a year, right? Because I didn't have the foundation. So it's not that you don't access them at all. It just shows up very inconsistently and very randomly until you've built this foundation through your frequency.
Yep.
And so the thesis of the book is that before, people were valued based on the information they stored in their brain and how they applied that information. And the shift to the premium resource is that a person's frequency, who they are, how they show up, how stable they are, how their nervous system interacts with other people and that's proven. It's proven that when a leader that has a strong nervous system comes into a room, that everybody in the room thinks clearer, feels safe, is more creative, is more powerful, that your state positively impacts everybody around you. And the same thing can happen if you're anxious, if you're worried that you're falling behind, If you feel like those types of things, then you show up to your team meeting. You're making
Everyone else is gonna
everybody,
be-
and this is not just in a room. This can be in a digital environment all the time. Everybody else not creative, feels unsafe, feels urgent, makes poor decisions. And the cascade of that every day in your business or your life and how that does, that's an incredible value point. All the science has been around it. It just hasn't, it's been showing up over the past 10 years as emotional intelligence, but emotional intelligence is a technique. And so instead of trying to use my hand gestures to, make you feel more connected to me, it's building the foundation so that my nervous system automatically shows up there all the time. And the difference in how it impacts you and impacts everybody else, whether you're trying to perform a technique versus just it being who you are all the time, there's a very big difference that people haven't appreciated historically, but is going to become more and more important. And so when AI is producing all this content, it might be true, it might be a lie, who knows, right? So there's all this content that getting that information is actually hurting you, not helping you, right? When it can produce all this output, like you making 100 blogs like you used to is not, like one blog that resonates with people is probably more valuable than 100 just shopped AI pieces of content because everybody else can do it. And so all the dynamics of how the world used to work from at the deepest level human value, but then stemming into the economy and how people make decisions and the rules that they play by, I think are just fundamentally changing. And so that's the premise of the book. It's inviting people to consider that reality is already occurring, that the signs have been moving in this direction for the past 10 years, but AI has just been the wave that accelerated the transition to a level where it's undeniable now. And then it casts a vision for how personal and professional life will reorganize when, like, can you imagine a college still being a thing in 20 years? It's not going to be a college.
I don't think they're going to be around.
It's not going to be a college. Can you imagine an elementary school being the way that it is right now? Like we are preparing children for a world that will not exist by the time they're out of school. And so those dynamics will change. Like, I can't believe that companies still look at resumes. It's like, what? It's like, what matters is who is this person? Who are they? How do they show up when things are hard? How creative are they? How do they impact? How are they working with everybody else? It has nothing to do with what's on their resume anymore, right? So all the dynamics of how the world used to work, where I go to college, get a credential, build up my resume, climb the corporate ladder, like to build a 10-year plan for your life, maybe it made sense in 1980 because things didn't change that much.
But now they're changing like every month.
Things are changing. It's almost like every day.
Yeah,
There's
every
a
day.
major release. Like it's not that you have to keep up with AI. It's that the terrain is changing so fast that having a 10-year plan, the plan's broken in 3 months. Right? I no longer make a 5-year business plan like every business school tells you to do. It's like that business plan is going to be irrelevant in 2 months. Right? So instead of having a plan where we follow this map all the way through, what we need is a compass. We need to say, this is the right direction that I'm going to move in. I have a vision for where that I'm going. And then to have the autonomy and self-trust that when the terrain changes, I can see it, I will adjust my compass, and I will move in a different direction, which is the exact opposite of what people have been trained to do their whole life. And the whole system has actually, it's forced those capacities to never have to be used. And when they're not used, they're not built. Like imagine never going to the gym. Your muscles aren't going to be in shape, right? And so when every single executive that they had 6 months to make a decision, they could consult McKinsey and all these different things. They would read a bunch of PDFs, collect information, talk about it in a boardroom for 3 quarters before they did anything. And the pain of all that time and energy wasted on basically nothing, because the thing was moving slow, it didn't hurt that badly. But now that everything's moving faster, that you don't have that when you introduce a consultant, you're introducing their values. You're introducing their biases to a decision that's about you. And so the rules of what people have been trained to do in corporate world are almost the exact opposite of what's going to make someone successful today, which I think is, I think that it's so cool.
No, it is. It's a fascinating perspective because a lot more people need to hear this new way of thinking, or else they risk yeah, sure, they risk falling behind, but they're going to really struggle to adapt, like in the post AI era.
So let's look. The post AI era, like the language matters. Okay, so if we called instead of the knowledge era, we called it the post industrial automation era, it creates a different reference point for people of what's important. So I think that the term is the frequency era.
Yep.
So that's one big thing. Now, when we look, because history has already happened in these things, that the dynamics of what happens are very consistent across the patterns. So the first thing is that once the shift is clear, that there's an economic value shift happening, that number one is that every institution lags. And so the colleges are not updating to train people on these skills. They'll continue to keep the structure. It's actually the most profitable they've ever been. So they have no real driver to change their business model. The personal development industry is the same thing. Professional credentialing certifications are the same thing. And corporate cultures are the same thing. So all these institutions are lagging behind. And when they lag, that creates social validation for everybody that this isn't that important, and they're telling them to keep being a better knowledge worker is what all the institutions are saying, right? And so when somebody sees that, they say, oh, this is consensus that I'm doing the right thing. And when they think they're doing the right thing, they fall into 5 traps. And the traps don't feel like traps, which is why they're so cruel. It feels like when you're doing it, that you're doing something responsible and you're doing the right thing because of the validation that's driving you in that direction. So the 5 traps are learning more. So in response to knowledge no longer being a scarce resource, the response is to accumulate more of something that is no longer scarce and premium. So that's not going to work. The next one is to work harder. When we're getting declining returns on the knowledge and effort we're putting in, it's just to apply more of what's always worked, which is just to work harder, which is just like the factory worker trying to work harder against the robot that's going to automate them. Then we have to get more credentials, to go back and get the data analytics certification, to get a mini MBA, to get another credential. And those credentials certify knowledge that is no longer scarce and premium. So the value of a credential is going to zero, unless it certifies something that's regulated. Then we have the AI augmented version, which is the most deceptive, which is that in response to AI, we become the best operator or manager of AI. And when we do that, it's just like the factory worker being the best person that mans the machine. It extends the runway a little longer for when you get automated, but it won't be too long till AI can manage itself. It just won't need you, right? And it's not to say that there won't be anyone that manages AI. It'll say that the number of people and the premium on that will continue to decline, right? It's hot right now. Wait 3 to 5 years. And then the last one is to optimize harder. Productivity hacks, schedules, try to get your sleep in order, build a cold plunging routine, meditate for 10 minutes, to build a routine to continue to be more efficient at going in the wrong direction to the wrong destination.
Dude, you just crushed the heart and soul of a million different entrepreneurs out there, man.
And so those are all the traps that everybody is falling into.
Yeah.
And like I said, it feels like it feels like you're doing the right thing while you're doing it. So I'm not talking down to anyone. I'm actually trying to help everyone.
That was a joke.
And so the core recognition is to see the game, the rules of the game, and the game that I'm playing is for a world that doesn't exist anymore, and the world is declining. And so, am I continuing to play harder in a game that's becoming unwinnable, or is it time to start playing a new game? And that's the invitation that I'm presenting to people throughout the book. And I think I've done a lot of work in my life. I've built big companies. I've done a lot of stuff, and this is by far the best piece of work I've ever made.
My bet is that it's going to be one of the most impactful things that come out, because think about it, like, no, first of all, everyone is stuck in the day to day. They don't have time to really put meaningful thought into subject matters like this, subjects like this. And think about it, like back to your 5 rules that people are playing by. All those tie back into delegating decision making to other people. So they're just going to go to the person that's already figured it out. So, I mean, like from what I'm seeing from human behavioral patterns right now, and if you mentioned how like your frequency is what sets you apart, but it's also your unique perspective on how you see things. And if AI is just going to scrape everything that's already been done, how is that even unique, right? And
Yep.
The cool part is like the evolution of business moving forward. I feel like it's just going to be more people doing more cool things, experiencing things, and then sharing that with the world, and them sharing their frequency of resonation with others, and that's what attracts their tribe. Because I'm going to speak from experience here. Even creating content and putting starting the brand and building our social media brand. We've tested like all this AI shit, and like it just ends up being AI slop. But the stuff that you don't even script, the stuff that you don't, the stuff that is raw, authentic, and organic, that is coming from your internal frequency, that's the stuff that performs at the highest, because that's not copyable. That's not like you can't really replicate that, and it comes from personal experience. And the only thing that stems from personal experience is it comes back down to your frequency.
So I want to go in one direction, which is like, why now? And so it's like, oh, like the things I'm doing are still working enough, right? Like, so that's a sign to me that like I'm immune to this and I'm going to be okay, right? Now imagine the factory worker in 1965, where they start putting the machines in that over the next 15 to 20 years will fully automate their job. But they don't see it at first. At the beginning, it's an ally. It's actually making them more productive, taking the things away that they are least valuable, that they don't want to do, and so they can do other things. But so it looks like an ally, and then it becomes a replacement. Now, in that scenario, that person they have multiple options, but let's look at it simply. They have 2 options. I can continue to become the best factory worker that I can, and I might be able to squeeze out the next 10 years of working harder, or I can start to become a knowledge worker. And when they take that split over the next 10 years, one person goes to become a knowledge worker. They learn these skills. They get 10 years of professional relationships. They learn all these things. Their children then start to grow up in a scenario where knowledge work are the main rules. They see their parents living that way. And the other person keeps being a factory worker. And then 10 years later, they get forced at 30, 40 years old to go and become a knowledge worker. They're 10 years behind. They have no experience. They haven't built the skills. Their children haven't grown up that way. They're in a competitive market that now has reached mainstream acceptance, and they have no advantage. And so the clear thing in history is that the people that see the pattern and develop the capacities that are becoming the premium resource, but they're not mainstream recognized yet, are the people that get asymmetric compounding advantages through the rest of their life. And so that is, I think, the most compelling reason to take a look at the game, to look back at history, to imagine that you have those 2 paths with the clarity of seeing how it's worked out with the tractors and with the industrial automation. And if you buy into the idea that this is the same thing in a different way, AI is doing the same thing to the conscious mind that industrial automation did to skilled labor. So if you buy into the idea that these are the same thing, and it's an economic transition driven by technology, not the other way around, that this becomes the biggest opportunity of your life. So I'm fired up about that. And then when we look at like your unique perspective, right? You had mentioned that in what you said before of like what the reality is that most people don't have the clarity or anything to actually have a perspective. not in a demeaning way. It's that they've never looked at the programs, and so their subconscious programs don't reflect them. They reflect what they've been told about what is responsible, what's safe, what success means, who they should be, even, right? What they should study, what kind of job is responsible or good, right? So the path of developing your frequency is to actually be you. And people say, just be authentic. Like, it's just that easy. I watched a Lewis Howes video about being authentic, and now all of a sudden I'm showing up authentically, right? It's not like that. And so the authenticity, or what I like to call is intentionality and autonomy, is an expression, it's a behavioral expression of developing your frequency. It's not a technique or a skill that you learn. It's how you show up automatically when these foundations are in place. Just like running a marathon requires, or doing a triathlon or an Ironman requires training, right? Mm-hmm. You don't just become an Ironman athlete. You actually build these underlying capacities of strength, endurance, all these different things that make you a professional athlete. So in this case, being autonomous, attentional, authentic is like being the Ironman top athlete. You have all these underlying skills that just express that way.
Wow. And, as we wrap up this episode here, if you were to leave one last message on how people should be thinking, and there's a lot of high-level stuff, and there's a lot of like actionable things that someone can do after watching this episode. What is one key takeaway that you'd like to leave the audience with that they can either put into action now, or or even just walk away with a new frame of thinking?
Yeah. So because people are tied up in all the traps that we mentioned, the number one response to this is, I don't have time. I don't have 20 minutes a day to do this, right? Mm-hmm. So I will pose to you something to reflect on, which is that, how much is it costing you not to do it? How much is it costing you in the anxiety that shows up twice a week, in second guessing your decisions, in knowing something that's right for you, like you should leave your job and that relationship, move to that new city, and you wait 3 months to decide to actually do it because you don't trust yourself fully? To have that creative burst for your company that relies on you, and then to have a creative dry spell for 90 days. To not be able to show up authentically and create content that shares your wisdom with others and benefits your business and your team. To want to go and do something like learn how to kite surf, learn how to DJ, learn how to do something creative and fun that would be so fun, but you think you're not creative enough. You think that you think that is not productive and doesn't benefit you and make your work better. To be able to want to get in shape, to want to have all that healthiness and vitality and energy, not by drinking caffeine and taking all these supplements and doing this stuff, but natural energy. To be able to have a deeper relationship with your spouse, your partner, your children, your friends. That how much is not taking the 20 minutes to do this stuff costing you? It's costing you a lot. It's costing you life satisfaction, performance, energy, health, a lot. All the drivers of what's inside of you are actually driven through your nervous system, everything in your life. And so the invitation is to consider that, right? We talked about, before we got on here, of like, we talked, is fitness or this more foundational, mm-hmm. right? And we both agree that this is more foundational, and fitness, being in physical health and having energy and vitality, is just one expression of having a powerful frequency. And then there are all the other expressions: your business, where you live, your house, your finances, how you look at time, creativity, purpose, all these, how you view yourself and mental health, all of these other areas that are all simply, it's like your frequency is the soil, and then all those different areas of your life are the fruit. And if the soil is dirty and gross and not nutritious, then none of the fruit are going to grow the way that they should. And people are up there trying to spray a little extra growth stuff on the fruit that's dying instead of focusing on the soil.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not to say that all the other things aren't important. It's to say where is the foundation and the most important thing. And I feel certain, based on the scientific evidence, that this is the foundational most important thing.
Absolutely, man. Well, appreciate you coming on the show. Where can people find you?
So if you enjoyed this, I've been starting an email newsletter, which is actually one of the new things that I've been doing. So you can sign up at the bottom of encoded.ai to sign up for when the book is released, which will be in a couple of weeks. And also to get a bunch of insights like this, which basically just challenge the rules of the game that you've been playing by and invite you to think about different possibilities for what's possible for you in your life. So that's a cool way. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, or the Encoded podcast.
Awesome, man. Well, great having you on the show.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Dope, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was a good one. Hour 35.
Wow.
Perfect.
Dude, yeah. I was like...